The House will now consider the paper petition signed by 10,000 or more persons listed on the business paper, which is regarding the design and construction of an overpass at the intersection of Mitchell Drive and the Pacific Highway, lodged by the member for Port Macquarie. I call the member for Port Macquarie.
Well, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I move that this House take note of the petition with 16,268 signatures tabled by me on the 22nd of August, calling on the government to require design works to begin immediately for an overpass at the intersection of Houston Mitchell Drive and Pacific Highway, and that construction be undertaken as soon as planning is complete. Ms Deputy Speaker, I wish to acknowledge first and foremost every single person who signed the petition and responded so quickly to the call from the Bonny Hills Progress Association to get behind this very important issue. And you did respond, let me tell you. When the petition was launched on the 21st of June at a public meeting, with a target, of course, of 10,000 signatures so we could debate it here in this House, in just 30 days, it reached that 10,000 signatures. What an amazing effort. So again, well done, and thank you to all of those people who signed the petition. And of course, as mentioned, the petition actually got well over that in the end, well over 16,000 signatures. I want to acknowledge the very hardworking and the very dedicated members of the Bonny Hills Progress Association, including President Roger Barlow, who I've had the absolute pleasure of working alongside in his role in the Progress Association for many, many years. Vice President Cathy Regan, who deserves a very special mention because she not only is the Vice President of the Association, but she also took on the leadership role for the Houston Mitchell Drive Subcommittee. Cathy's passion, her determination and her advocacy on this issue to see an overpass the intersection is both impressive and, quite frankly, admirable. Secretary Tony Robinson, Treasurer Paul Pawlowski, Public Officer Pamela Barlow, and the committee members, Bill Howe, who again I've had the pleasure of working with for many years, Ian Simpson, John Drennan, Paul Gallant and Ross Smith. I would also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge Transport for New South Wales Regional Director Anna Zicki, who I had the pleasure of working alongside for many years. She has worked with me and with our community to address improvements at this intersection, but also on many other road projects such as the upgrade of King Creek Road and Oxley Highway intersection. Madam Deputy Speaker, I was really proud to be a part of the former government who completed the duplication of the Pacific Highway from Hexham to the Queensland border in 2020, and then immediately turned its attention to creating safer and smoother journeys along the highway with upgrades to intersections such as Houston Mitchell Drive. We did make a commitment of $2.9 million delivered under the Safer Roads program, started in September 2021, those works, and included acceleration and deceleration lanes on the Pacific Highway for southbound motorists turning left into and left out of Houston Mitchell Drive. It also included widening of the road shoulders and the installation of safety barriers. And while the former government did respond to the calls from residents to make the intersection safer, we all know that ultimately the solution that will maximise safety for motorists and other road users at this intersection is a grade separated overpass. With the change in government in March this year, I immediately wrote to the new Minister, the Honourable Jenny Aitchison, and I acknowledge that the Minister is in the House with us this afternoon. I wrote to her for two things. One, to congratulate her absolutely on her new role, but also to invite her to visit the Port Macquarie electorate to see firsthand the ongoing concerns in relation to a number of state-owned roads, but including Houston Mitchell Drive and the Oxley Highway. I want to absolutely thank the Minister because she responded to my invitation very promptly, one of the first ministers to come to the electorate following the election, and she took the time to meet with the Progress Association representatives on site at the intersection at Houston Mitchell Drive. She listened to their concerns, and I think they did an incredible job of presenting to her the concerns of the community more broadly. I made it very clear at that time that I would continue to work closely with the Minister and with Transport for New South Wales to ensure that this issue remained front and centre on the government's agenda. So I'm really pleased that we're having the opportunity today, thanks to those 16,000 plus petitioners, to consider this issue in the House. I note that the response to the petition from the Minister is due next week on the 26th of September, and we're all hopeful that she'll be sharing that written response with us today. We're also hopeful that maybe she'll have some good news for those petitioners, for the Progress Association and for the broader community.
I call the member for Shellharbour.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I would sincerely like to thank the member for Port Macquarie and the more than 16,000 passionate road safety enthusiasts for bringing this very important petition to this place tonight. I know Lake Cat-Eye very well, and I know Bonny Hills very well. It's a beautiful part of the world, and so thank you for bringing this petition here today. And I know how hard it is to even get a few thousand signatures on a petition, so congratulations on a fantastic effort. Speaker, I acknowledge the pain and the suffering of the families and the friends and the colleagues of those injured or killed by tragic accidents at this intersection over many years. As a regional New South Wales MP for over 12 years now, I share your enthusiasm and your frustrations regarding road safety along our beautiful south coast and our north coast. Just like the member for Port Macquarie has always continued to do, I too have seen many members of my own community of Shellharbour suffer from serious accidents on our roads. My enthusiasm for road safety was one of the main reasons I was so keen to put my hand up for the Parliamentary Secretary for Regional Roads and Transport, assisting Minister Aitchison in our government's efforts to provide a safe road network for all of our regional communities, including Port Macquarie. Speaker, no matter which side of the House we sit, road safety is a priority for each and every one of us in this place. I can assure those petitioners, and I know that they're not here today, but if you can pass this on, I assure those petitioners that this government is committed to improving the road network to reduce risks that motorists right across our regional New South Wales face day in and day out. Intersections such as the T intersection joining the Houston-Mitchell Drive with the Pacific Highway are unfortunately common across our road networks. We must strive to continually improve such busy intersections, and I know that the previous government have undertaken many upgrades, including the reduction in speed limit, improvements to the layout of the new safety barriers, as well as turning and acceleration lanes. Speaker, this government, and particularly the Minister Aitchison in her role as Minister for Regional Roads and Transport, is investigating improvements to the intersection, and I am thankful for the hard work undertaken by Transport for New South Wales on this intersection. I too lend my support to you for those staff who work for Transport for New South Wales, incredible people. And I want to publicly acknowledge their hard work. As a Parliamentary Secretary, I can assure the petitioners that the Minister's Office and the departmental staff are working tirelessly on matters such as road safety. It is a priority of this government and within this portfolio to look at safety right across regional New South Wales. Whilst the residents of Lake Cat-Eye and Bonny Hills will no doubt be thankful once this intersection is made even safer, it is the welfare of the people that we will never know of the hard work undertaken by the petitioners that must drive us all. We must do this for the young family travelling to Port Macquarie for a well-earned holiday in the 2030s that will never know that this petition has saved their lives. We must do this for the plumber from Sydney, soon to retire to Bonny Hills, whose life it will save in the mid-2040s. We must do this for the hard-working Member of Parliament who will retire to Lake Cat-Eye following the 5th term of this Labor government, whose life will be saved by these petitioners' hard work. I had to throw that one in. The Speaker, the people of this petition will never be able to give thanks to the petitioners. So on behalf of each and every person who signed this petition, I thank them from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for bringing this petition.
Call the member for Terrigal.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I also want to acknowledge the great work that's been done by the Bonnie Hills Progress Association. And again, being a regional MP, Progress Associations really are at the heart of our communities. And for the Bonnie Hills Progress Association to come together in less than 30 days and garner 16,268 signatures is an absolute testament to the community's resilience, but also their drive to make their region safer. And I'm so proud, as the member for Port Macquarie has been, that we have been members of a former government that saw record investment in regional roads right across New South Wales. The Central Coast received almost $1 billion worth of state road infrastructure in the time that I've had the pleasure of serving as a member for Terrigal, and that's made those regional roads safer for everybody, whether they be travelling for holidays or commuting for work. It's important that our regional roads receive this ongoing investment. Sydney extends well past the borders, and we've got to make sure that people can travel safely. And I want to commend the member for Port Macquarie, whose tireless efforts, both in the previous government and now in opposition, will no doubt ensure that this project gets delivered. I'm really pleased the Minister is in the chamber today. It is important that the government realises that these roads can never be neglected. And I also had the pleasure of working with Regional Director Anna Zeki. She's also my Regional Roads Director. And I've actually spoken about her in this chamber many, many times. It's because of Anna and her team that thousands of people make it home safely, and that cannot be undersold. The great work that Transport for New South Wales teams do with regional roads is nothing short of spectacular. This is why it's so important that the new Minns Labor government continues to focus on delivering record investment into regional roads right across New South Wales, and especially areas like the Houston Mitchell Drive. And I've had the pleasure of visiting the member for Lake Macquarie's electorate a number of times, and I have seen firsthand the beauty of the region, but also the danger that comes with those roads. And I would say to the Minister, by the way, I was reading through the budget papers, Minister, and I noticed that you've provided $47 million for an intersection. This is in the Central Coast section for Pacific Highway at Harrington and Coopanook Roads. That's actually in the member for Port Macquarie's electorate, not Central Coast, but we're happy to take that $47 million as well, because I've got a road at the corner of Wards Hill Road and Empire Bay Drive that needs a traffic study, and there's no money in the budget for it. So some of that $47 million that's been printed twice in the budget papers, we'd be very happy to take some of that. And obviously, if the state government can't contribute the $1.2 million for the traffic study, I'll call on the federal government to provide it, because these studies provide the best outcomes for communities in regional areas to make sure that roads are delivered on time, on budget, but provide the best outcomes for both locals and travellers and visitors alike. And I've got to say to the committee again, to President Roger Barlow, to Kathy Regan, to Bill, to Ian, to John, to Paul, to Ross, thank you for all of your tireless efforts. To Tony and Paul, as I said before, you've done a great job with this. To show almost 16,500 signatures in 30 days from a regional area is nothing short of incredible, and you should be commended on this. But it also shows how passionately the community feels about our road projects. And whether it be the Houston Mitchell Drive Pacific Highway Overpass, or whether it be the Wards Hill Road Empire Bay intersection, or whether it be a multitude of other regional roads, which I'm sure the member for Upper Hunter will talk about, it's important that these roads receive that funding for planning money, which makes sure that the shovels then hit the ground in the most efficient and effective way in our regions. And we've seen an incredibly efficient delivery of regional road upgrades from one end of New South Wales to the other, and I hope and I pray that this new government will do exactly the same thing the former government has done. And so I look across the Central Coast, more than $1 billion worth of state road infrastructure that have taken some of the worst roads on the Central Coast and made them some of the best roads in New South Wales. And that's something that we're particularly proud of, and we should be, but it's also because our community demands it and expects it of us as state members of parliament, that these state roads are given the treatment and the attention that they deserve. And again, I've got to congratulate the incredible team at Transport for New South Wales. The work that they do engaging with our communities on our behalf to help come up with the best options for all of those outcomes, whether it be the overpass at Houston Mitchell Drive or a potential roundabout or whatever the turn options might be at Wards Hill Road and Empire Bay Drive. It's community-driven feedback back, and I've seen it happen before on the Central Coast at an intersection in my own electorate at Kincumber as well. 3 rounds of community consultation. The outstanding team at Transport for New South Wales worked with the community, and we got the best possible outcome for our region because of the great work being done by Transport for New South Wales, but it's also being led by the incredible community with 16,268 signatures to the Bonnie Hills Progress Association. Congratulations, well done.
Call the member for Cessnock.
Thank you, Speaker, and I too rise to speak to the 10,000 signature petition being tabled by the member for Port Macquarie. With regard to the overpass, or the proposed overpass at Houston Mitchell Road and the Pacific Highway, and I want to put on the record the admiration that I have for that particular member, Leslie Williams from Port Macquarie. She's one of my favourites in this place and has been for some time.
Aww.
I'll move on.
I thought I was your favourite.
I want to acknowledge, I too, as all of us will, we want to acknowledge the efforts that go into putting together a petition like this, because it's hard, it's a hard slog, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of, putting yourself in front of people, it's a lot of asking people to do something to help you and to assist, and that's a real challenge for many of us, asking people to help or asking people to assist. But the Progress Association have done that, and they've done that in incredible time. And so I dip my hat to everybody involved in this particular petition. I'm familiar with obviously that intersection because I go up and down the coast a fair bit, and on my trip up and down the coast, I think if I think a little bit further south, and I don't want to steal the member for Upper Hunter's thunder, but I think about the Buckets Way, I think about Medowie Road. I think about the intersection that spears off towards Hawk's Nest and Tea Gardens. These are all difficult intersections when you've got the dual carriageway, you're flying up or flying down at 110 kilometres an hour for those of us who follow the speed limit. Other cars are going past us. Sometimes trucks are going past us. I can't quite explain that. But anyway, that's but it is difficult. And sometimes you come into these areas where you kind of go, ooh, I wouldn't like to be turning across that road with cars going that fast. As it is, and I do recognise and I understand that there has been some improvements to that particular intersection in the short term, and that's some turning lanes and speeding up lanes or accelerating lanes, and there's also been a slight amendment to the speed, as I understand it, around that intersection. So it's come from 110 down to 100 if you're southbound, and you're potentially going to be in that dangerous approach. These are small things that we can do around the edges in terms of shorter term solutions to something that's probably ultimately going to need a longer term solution. But there are these competing interests and projects, and I mentioned a couple of intersections a little further to the south of this one, and it is absolutely not for me to say which of those is more or less important, more or less dangerous. That is for road engineers, that is for Transport for New South Wales, that is for budgetary questions and constraints and all that sort of stuff. Our job as local members is to advocate for our local concern in our local patch. And again, I commend the member for Port Macquarie because she is doing that brilliantly in her community and in this chamber this afternoon, and that's fantastic. But there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and we should always strive towards 0 deaths on our roads up front. Now, we probably won't ever get there. But we should be driving in that direction, and I think that in our roads in New South Wales over the last decades have been improving, and I know that the trip north now is nothing like what it used to be on those single lane roads, and darkness and winding and potholes and everything like that. Now I think that our Pacific Highway heading north and south in 2023 is much better than it was in 1993 or 1973. So we continue that work. But in terms of families, a family that loses a loved one on a road is an incredibly sad affair, not just for the family but for the friends and the community that are around that person. I certainly hope that between now and whatever improvements come at Houston and Mitchell Drive, that there is no further accidents. I certainly hope there are absolutely no deaths there. I hope that there's no more tragedy there. But this is an important piece of work, an important question to put to Parliament, and I commend the member for doing exactly that.
I call the member for Upper Hunter.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I thank the people of Port Hastings Council area, and particularly those of Bonnie Hills and Lake Cat-Eye, and of course the Bonnie Hills Progress Association for bringing this petition to the House. I know the area quite well, and I must admit I'm quite partial to popping into the Lake Cat Eye Tavern and enjoying its hospitality in many different ways. It's a great spot. It's a beautiful area, beautiful people, good regional people who just want their fair share when it comes to local infrastructure, and that fight is taken up by the good member for Port Macquarie, and we thank her for all her work that we see for those people in this House. I'd also like to acknowledge the lived experience of those who have been involved in accidents at this junction and many of the other intersections that resulted in loss of life or terrible injuries, and the massive hurt that it's caused to many families. I think if you're listening today, our heart goes out to you, because I think road safety, as someone mentioned, is certainly a priority for every single person in this House. So the Houston-Mitchell Drive and Pacific Highway connection is a very important intersection and an important area. It's seen incredible growth, particularly with the over 50s. I think they love moving to that. Yeah, I know, to that area. I think someone over there might be ready to go. No, not yet. And of course, we've seen during COVID that large numbers of people have moved to up the coast, and so this is an area that's growing. And has huge potential for further growth. And if we want to address housing in regional areas, we always have to continue investing in that supporting infrastructure. And of course, the Pacific Highway is a huge piece of great infrastructure. I too can remember going up the old highway in the Ford Cortina with the vinyl seats, no air conditioning. Ooh, I know, it was, and my two other brothers. Holy mate, that was a tough trip. So it is a huge piece of infrastructure. That great north-south piece of infrastructure made a huge difference. Opened up economic opportunities, tourism. But the job doesn't finish there, and we've always got to have continuous improvement going forward, particularly in the area of safety. And at these intersections, there is some real challenges around safety. Certainly when you're turning onto a very fast road like that from a standing start. And the intersections there, Madowry Road intersection, the Mile Way intersection, Hawk's Nest, Falford Road into Foster, Harrington Road crossing, but of course Buckets Way intersection, which is going from my electorate, actually in Port Stephens electorate, but certainly the link between Gloucester and the Pacific Highway, and this is another intersection in desperate need of an overpass. I've certainly experienced it myself. Very, very difficult to pull out, especially in the middle of school holidays when that traffic is just so heavy, especially when you're pulling a horse float and you've got a semi-trailer behind it. There's pressure, there's a car coming this way, you've got to get out that way. It is a very difficult intersection. I think that's probably replicated all over the Pacific Highway, a number of these different areas, and the traffic along that Buckets Way is getting heavier and heavier. Gloucester as a mining town is coming to the end, but as an industrial town with other different manufacturing industries is getting busier and busier. But we do see the benefits of these overpasses when they're built, and very soon we'll be opening the Golden Highway New England connection, and that's a $100 million project. Huge transformation in road safety at that junction, which is very similar to the ones on the Pacific Highway. Very busy, a lot of accidents, and a complete change. So in the next few months we'll be opening that, which we're very excited about, of course. But I too would like to acknowledge the work that's been done by Transport New South Wales on the planning to date on these intersections. There is some work that's happened already in the short term, and I think we can do some more in that short term space, but the long term solution will never change, and overpasses will be required. The work goes on. I thank the people of Port Macquarie Hastings Council area for bringing the petition, and I pledge my support as well.
Call the Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Look, I rise to speak on this petition, and I want to thank at the outset the member for Port Macquarie for bringing it to the House, and also those members of the Bonny Hills Progress Association that I met with when I was in opposition as a shadow minister. I remember meeting with them at the donut at Port Macquarie, and them sharing their frustration that they hadn't had the work done on this intersection that they had wanted to have done. I want to start also by really acknowledging the hurt and pain of families and friends of all those who've been injured or killed in car crashes at this location and across the state. And, you know, statistics around road fatalities are always sobering. You know, right now the road toll for our state stands at 260 people, and that is just too many. Every single one is too many. And in this particular site, we're looking at 17 crashes have happened here, causing 20 fatalities just in the last 10 years. So it definitely is an intersection which needed more work much earlier, but we are where we are. This petition's calling on the New South Wales Government to review the intersection. I'm pleased to report that in accordance with the wishes of the petitioners, and also with the, after that meeting with the member and Transport for New South Wales and Anna Ziggy, who does do an amazing work, and the community, we asked Transport to do exactly that. The crash data they've got tells us that the right-hand turning movements both in and out of the intersection are the key conflict points. The right-hand turning movement is responsible for the majority of crashes, including the most recent fatality. The removal of right-hand turning movements will require some construction of an alternative turning facility, such as a U-turn bay. Now, I do acknowledge that some safety upgrades have already occurred, and I note the member for Cessnock, and I thank him for his contribution, referred to some of those of, you know, reductions in speed, etc. And in June this year, we collected some further data about traffic movements at the intersection to fully understand them, which confirmed traffic volumes of 20,000 vehicles a day, which are reasonably split between north and south movement, and that traffic generally travels just under the speed limit, which is 110 per kilometre north and 100 per kilometre south. Now that decision making will help us inform, that data will help us inform our decision making. But I do want to talk about this. You know, safety, road safety is the highest priority for this government. I note the member for Port Macquarie had a notice of motion here talking about 24,000 people who have the regional seniors travel card. You know, over 4 years that commitment equated to $24 million, which would have been a really good start for planning money for this. We are prioritising real funding every year for safety, and we will be continuing to do that in government.
I call the member for Port Macquarie in reply.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Well, before I thank those members who spoke on the petition this afternoon, I want to acknowledge firstly how sad we all were to learn of the death of Mr. Ian Parker. He was a well-known local who was involved in a two-car collision at the Houston-Mitchell Drive intersection on May the 2nd, just this year. It was certainly a very stark reminder to us all of the challenging conditions at that intersection, and I know that his family and his friends will continue to grieve their loss. I note that Transport for New South Wales did respond immediately, with work beginning on the 22nd of May to install further warning signs on the Pacific Highway at Lake Innes on approaches to the Houston-Mitchell Drive intersection. And Transport for New South Wales also advised that they would be installing 2 vehicle-activated solar-powered signs, each about 150 metres from the intersection. And as the Minister has alluded to, they also conducted some routine traffic surveys at the intersection. Of course, that is really important to understand what is actually happening on the highway at that particular point. I do want to thank the members who made a contribution, the member for Shell Harbour and Parliamentary Secretary, the member for Terrigal, member for Cessnock. I do feel pressured now to say that he's one of my favourite members in the House, but I'm only saying that right now. Look, I will quickly move on. The member for Upper Hunter, and lastly, I do want to thank the Minister for her contribution again today, and assuring us that you're continuing to look at what safety measures we can take in the short term. But I want to stress again that what these petitions are asking for is planning money. They understand that an overpass is an enormous cost of money to the government. And, as the member Cessnock said, there are, intersections up and down the highway that do need work, but they are asking for some planning money, and I would urge the Minister to consider that in the months ahead. Thank you.
The question is that the House take note of the debate petition. All of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The debate